Awesome. So my name is David Politis. I'm going to talk about some lessons that I've learned over the last 20 years of running SaaS companies. So I started my career right out of school at a company called Vocalocity. It's a very long story, which I can tell you over drinks later, but basically I was employee 15. I was a marketing assistant at this company, and they fired everyone at the company within 6 months of me joining the company. And they literally made me the CEO and the one engineer that was left the CTO. And so we pivoted the business. We built one of the first ever cloud PBXs. And that business ended up getting sold for about $200 million to Vonage. From there, I went to one of the first ever cloud, Google Cloud partners called Cloud Sherpas, about 6-7 people when I joined. That business got up to hundreds of millions of revenue, was sold for about $500 million to Accenture. And then I started BetterCloud 12 years ago. BetterCloud started as a Google Apps or Google Workspace management tool. We ended up building the first ever SaaS management platform. We built that business up. We sold that for almost $1 billion 2 years ago. And so a year ago, I stepped back from running the business and started advising, investing in companies. So I spent a lot of time with SaaS companies, cloud companies, seeing the ups and downs. You know, when I tell that story, it sounds like, wow, this is an amazing career. I've had periods of time where the business almost failed, had to pivot, had to raise money in 2008, had to raise money in the early days of COVID. So I've been through a lot. When I took a short vacation, my wife came to me and she said, "It seems like you're stressed out from not doing anything. You got to get back to work." So I started writing this document with all the lessons that I had learned over 20 years. This document turned out to be 65 pages. It's a public Google Doc. I'll share the link at the end. But when I published it on LinkedIn, I got amazing feedback. And it wasn't just from founders and CEOs, but it was just from operators in general. And so after I put that out, Alex had called and said, "Hey, would you come and speak at SaaStock and share some of these lessons?" So I focused this presentation on lessons really for earlier stage companies, founders, CEOs, operators. Number one, get your ideal customer profile and ideal buyer persona, really get it right and get it very focused. What I see with a lot of companies, basically every company I've advised in the last year, when I talk to them, they tell me, well, we're selling to the director of IT, and we sell to the CIO, and we sell to the CISO. We also sell in the US, in Canada, but also we do Latin America, and we do small companies and big companies. And the big challenge, and I see this everywhere, and I've lived this myself at every single company. You want to go after this massive TAM. You want to go after how many companies can we go get? Let's make the TAM as big as possible. The challenge when you do that is that it is hard to really focus in the value prop, the messaging, the go-to-market motion, all of that. And as soon as you focus this down on a very, very small, narrow group of people and companies, it becomes so much easier to sell. For me, we did this at BetterCloud. One of our investors came in and they said, you're all over the place. You got to get really focused. So we went through an effort to figure out what was our ideal customer profile, our ideal buyer persona. We went through a multi-month effort to do this. When we just made that decision, no joke, within a quarter, our sales cycle was down by 30%, ASP up 20%, close rate up 100%. It's amazing how powerful this can be. I walked around here today, earlier in the day, and every person I asked, who do you sell to? The answer was this, one person said, oh, it's a small companies, but we also do some larger companies. We sell to the CIO, but also the CISO. I promise you, having done this, it is impossible to do all of those things well. So that's the first lesson. That's a big one. It immediately makes an impact. Number two is around hiring. So as I've gone through my career, I've hired, I'm not sure, thousands of people, but I've hired dozens of executives. And I have made this mistake too many times. And again, one of the lessons that I felt like I needed to share with everyone else, which is when you think about the kind of executive you're going to hire at an early stage company, right? You're looking for an executive to come in and to build their team, to do all this, to create a brand. Too often though, what happens is people go out and instead of hiring the person who's for the right stage of their company and who's been through it before, They end up hiring someone who has all of this experience at some company like Google or Amazon or Salesforce or something like that. I've done this before. The issue when you do that, when you're a really small company, first of all, when you think about hiring someone from Google, I promise you, when someone emails from @google.com, a sales email, people respond. When someone emails from whatever the company name is, yours or mine, people don't respond, right? So you get this sales manager from Google, they're like, I crushed it, I was owning $1 billion book of business. That's very different than going into a company early stage and building that company, right? And building that team. You look at these, first person I ever hired as my head of sales, my CRO, we were selling to IT. So who did I go get? Someone from Dell who had experience at EMC, Dell, all these companies selling to IT. When that person joined, they didn't know how to build a team without sales ops, without the dedicated, marketing person, without their own EA, without this, without that. They were used to having all this infrastructure around them. And this is actually, to me, this is a big mistake that people make. And by the way, investors drive this mistake a lot of times. They say, hey, you're scaling, you're now at 20 million, you're going to 100 million. Let's go get the person who's seen 100 million. In reality, there's many steps between 20 and 100 million of ARR. And you need to get the person who's seen those stages and who's seen it at a company that, is, if you can get them in the same space, that's great. But I believe stage is more important than industry when you're looking to hire someone. And I did this again with a head of marketing, with a CMO, and I went out and got a CMO who was, the resume was amazing. But our company at the time was 50 million of ARR, and we brought this guy in, and he came in, and he started wanting to do events that cost $500,000, hire agencies to build our website for $300,000. And I said to him, we don't have this kind of budget. Why would you be doing this? He said, oh, at Salesforce, we had an unlimited budget for agencies. I said, unlimited? He's like, pretty much unlimited. That's a big, big, big challenge that you face. So for me, having been through this many times, the second lesson for you. Next one. So this is really around team management. For me, I think that I've seen, personally, I've been through building a bunch of different ways to do planning. OKRs, this, cascading that. But a lot of times when you're really early, or even if you've got a mission critical thing you have to go do. For a lot of people today in the market that we're in, the challenge is fundraising, right? In order to get your Series A, you've got to be over $1 million of ARR now. In order to get the Series B, you got to be this. And really, how do you align your team against that single metric, that single goal that gets you to where you need to be? So I'll tell you this story. So for BetterCloud, we had built this platform. We had huge adoption. Everything was going up and to the right. 5 million of ARR, all based around Google Workspace. And then Microsoft 365 came into the market, Slack, Zoom, this, that, and our customers started coming to us, these directors of IT, and they said, hey, we need something that goes past just Google Workspace. So I said, okay, great. We're going to go and build this new platform. It sounds, again, I'm summarizing all this for you, but it was a ballsy decision. We said we're going to go build a new platform, spend $25 million to build this platform so we can not just manage Google, but we can manage any SaaS application in the world. It literally took 18 months to build this platform. And I was convinced that when we launched this platform, that's it, we're taking off. We launched the platform 18 months later, worst 18 months of my career. My team had told me it was going to take 9 months. It took 18 months. We thought it was going to cost 10 million. It cost more than 20 million. We launched this platform. We put it out in the market. No one's buying. The reality is we have to raise money within a year of this launch. And we have this product that we spent all this time building that everyone told us was going to be amazing, and no one's buying it. So I sat down with the team. This is January of 2017. And I said, if we do not get 100 customers on this new platform by October, then we will not be able to fundraise, and I am not sure what's going to happen with the business. The team was already 100 plus people at that time. We sat down, had that conversation. It was amazing what happened once we set that single goal. It is truly amazing. We put up back then we were all in the office, we put up on the screens a counter out of 100, 1 out of 100, 2 out of 100, and that was the only thing that we talked about at all hands meetings. That was on every screen around all the offices that we had, and we made that the single goal. And in the beginning, when we made that the goal, it didn't make a difference, right? Month 1, we signed up 1 customer. Month 2, 2 customers. Month 3, 0 customers. But what happened is because we were so focused on that single goal, it forced us to make a lot of decisions about how to get to that goal. So for example, the sales team said, hey, we're not seeing momentum. The reason is the pricing is super complicated and you basically need calculus to figure out the price to give the customer. Can we simplify it? I said, you know what? We're gonna make it one price, all in, give them everything for this price, let's build momentum. Immediately we start seeing a change. The engineering team, which had been building a little bit of this and a little bit of that, we got the team, the sales team came to us, the customer success team. This is the list of features. We stack ranked them with the whole team. We gave them to engineering and said, this is the list of features in order of priority. Let's start going and doing that. Every time we started knocking off a feature, we acquired a couple more customers. So this continued into every part of the business. Then they said, we don't know how to message this. What's the right value prop? We're talking now about all these different applications. So I ended up writing a book about SaaS management, literally, just so I could give assets to the team that they could use to go sell it. Come March, it's like 5 customers. April, 5 more customers. October, we got to 120 customers. We ended up raising a $30 million round in January, and that was all because of that single goal. And I've gone and done that with a couple of companies recently, especially companies that need to hit a goal by a certain day. Most of the time it's for fundraising purposes. It's amazing when you put that one goal out there. You make everyone aware of what's required to get there, and you force the whole company to talk about that versus 10 different cascading OKRs that get passed on to this person, this person. Next, kind of talking about that, moving to fundraising. When I went out the first time to fundraise, I didn't know what I was doing. I went to one of the biggest firms in the world, and I went and pitched our company. And I said, we are the best company that does all this stuff for Google, all this, and literally the investor in 6 minutes said, this is not for us, you can leave, this is never gonna be $1 billion company, literally. Next investor went, he had his feet up on the table, another very famous investor, feet up on the table, eating popcorn, no joke. I give him the pitch, 10 minutes later, he's like, this is not for us. And I started realizing the problem was I was talking so tactical about where I was today with the business and what we were doing with the business today, that I wasn't really selling the big future. I wasn't really selling that end goal. How are we gonna build this massive company? Even though I knew it, I felt like I didn't earn the right to tell that story. And then I end up in the next round doing the opposite. Basically going and selling the big vision. We're gonna be $1 trillion company, but I didn't show them that I actually knew how to execute between here and there. And I think this is a mistake that is made by a lot of founders, where either you're a founder who's like the operational founder and you're all the way in the beginning, you're talking about where you are today, or you're one of these visionary founders and you're just talking about the future and how you're gonna change the world and take over the world. And the issue for investors is they need to see where you're gonna take it, but they need you to walk them through that and hold their hand in that journey as you tell that story. Again, something that I've been doing recently with companies I'm advising, and when you make that one change, right, there's that one slide after you've told them the business, you've explained how you're doing what you're doing, you're at $1 million of ARR, but the business you're in is gonna get you to $5 million of ARR, but you're gonna have a path to hundreds of millions when you do X, Y, and Z. This for me was a major unlock in future fundraising. It was really important to tell the investor, I know that where we are today is not going to get you the payback that you want, but I am focused on executing here because it lays the foundation to go and do this long term. So again, this is a lesson that I've learned, and especially I think in today's time, it is hard to fundraise right now. It is hard to fundraise, and it's important when you go out to do it that you are telling this story and that the investor sees downside protection and massive upside opportunity. And how do you show that to them? The next one, right? So as I took the business, we got up to, 450 people. First company up to a couple hundred people. So have seen kind of the scale of 0 to, 400 or 500 people. your role changes a lot. And I think when you see CEOs that don't make it, it's because as their role is changing, they can't evolve with the changing job and requirements. When I started, literally, I was the one who was putting together IKEA desks in the mornings before the employee joined for their first day. I was screwing together the IKEA desk, right? And I was ordering the laptop, or literally going to the Apple store and buying the laptop. And those early days, that's what you're doing. Everyone's on the same level. You're just a contributor, just like everyone else, right? Then you start hiring some people, right? And as you start doing that, you start being able to think about, like, this quarter, we're in Q4, what should we prioritize for this quarter? Let me talk to the team and figure out how we should prioritize our features. Let's go through all of that. Then as you keep evolving, right, you start getting into this bigger organization, and now you're dealing with a lot, right? This is, for me, this moment where I was managing C-level executives. I had a CRO, I had a director of marketing reporting to me, I had an individual contributor on the finance side. Like, when you get to this is frankly one of the most challenging places, in my opinion, to be, because you can't be one of everyone and you're doing all the work with them side by side, but you also can't really think strategically. And this for me was, and at every company, the most exhausting period of time here. But ultimately, you get to a place where you have a set of leaders underneath you who know how to run their functions. They know how to take care of sales and marketing and engineering. And of course, you're spending time with them, but you're no longer involved, 2-3 levels deep. You're doing skip levels, you're doing all hands, but you're not really involved in the day-to-day management 2 or 3 levels deep. And so when you get to this place, your job just fundamentally changes. And again, for me, which I think is for most founders, you're used to being in the weeds. You actually, at least for me, I enjoyed being in the weeds. And when this happens, it really changes. You have to evolve in a big way when you get here. One of my investors, I was talking to him, we did our bi-weekly calls, and I'm giving him the update, and he was CEO of one of the big tech companies, and he was our investor, and I was giving him the update of what was happening over the last 2 weeks, and what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. He said, Dave, I don't want to talk about what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. You need to be thinking about what's going to happen next year. You need to really be contemplating, where are we going to take this business? Because in order to steer this ship, not huge business, again, 50, 80 million of ARR, but we have to steer this ship. It takes longer than when it was just make a decision, make a change to the product. And so I really urge CEOs, founders, to really be aware of these stages of growth and being really intentional about evolving themselves and improving as they go through each of these. Sometimes it's getting a coach. For me, it was this investor that I had that really pushed me, especially in that last stage. But it may be getting a coach. It may just be having a peer group that has been there, or is at the next stage and can talk you through it. And the biggest thing is just letting go of a lot of the work that you were doing and being okay with it and coming up with systems for how to manage and have your eye on everything that's happening. And then the last one, I said I was going to do 5, but I ended up adding a 6th one for everyone. This is important, especially at an event like this. This is important, especially if you're on LinkedIn all the time, if you're on Instagram, if you're on whatever. It looks like everyone is crushing it. You go to a conference, people are high-fiving each other. This person just raised all this money. This is great. Real life, right? This is literally what I feel like every day when I go on LinkedIn. This is what it feels like. Someone did this amazing thing. Someone did this. Again, you can even use this for personal. I'm on Instagram. It looks like they're on vacation all the time. My friends, they're making like $10 million a year. It's so easy. In real life, this is what it looks like. I promise you, this is what it looks like. I've spent my own years and then many, many years with other companies and other CEOs and founders. There's always a challenge. One advisor said to me, he said, Dave, if you ever feel like you're not in a storm and you don't have stuff going wrong, if you ever feel that, it's just because you're in the eye of the storm. You're either going to walk into something or you're walking out of something. And I have felt that to be very, very true over the years. And I just think it's important to remember that, because from where you're sitting, outside in looks very different than inside out, right? And I have pushed people. By the way, it's one of the reasons I published this document with all these lessons, is because I really push people to be transparent. I think it's actually better, it's healthier, and you can start learning from each other. Hey, oh, I had this issue. You know, when I was going through the period I had mentioned before of rebuilding the platform, it took twice as long and twice as much. When we went through that period, I was very open with people about the challenges we were having. And what was amazing about that is other people had gone through similar pivots or rebuilds, and then they started opening up. And frankly, I felt a lot better that I wasn't in that alone. Oh, my engineering team sucks because they said 9 months, it took 18 months. In reality, it's like, that's what most people are dealing with. Maybe that was extra long, but point is, like, it always takes longer. It costs more. There's always that customer, you know, I just as a small example, you know, in the peak of our growth, like the real peak of our growth, in 1 week, I lost our largest customer. I lost a CRO who I had been looking for 6 months, who signed the offer sheet and then didn't come. And I tore my Achilles playing basketball, all in the same 48 hours. Then I showed up to Entrepreneur of the Year award ceremony in New York looking like everything's great, when literally I think the company's going to go out of business, right? That is what everyone is dealing with, and it's just important to remember that. So that's a QR code to the doc. If you want to check it out, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can find it's good if you're going on a plane, you want to go to sleep at night, you can read it. But it's the feedback has been awesome, and what I think you'll see in a lot of cases is you're probably going to see that there are things in there that it's not rocket science. Maybe it just affirms something you already know is the case. Maybe it just makes you feel better because you went through that same thing. Maybe it's an idea that, you know, something that sparks an idea. So it's not rocket science. It's not all inclusive of everything. Not everyone will agree with everything. But I really do hope, truly, like, this is my way of giving back. It's all free. I don't get paid for any of this stuff. Like, hopefully it's just that someone else learns from this, one thing, two things, and you can take away and makes your journey a little bit easier or a little bit more successful. Thank you very much.